how their silence slices deeper than any insult, and their absence lingers heavier than their presence ever did. That's the quiet sting of emotional attachment. You hand over the steering wheel of your internal world, letting someone else dictate when you're uplifted, when you're torn down, when you feel complete. And before long, often without realizing, you become a captive to their decisions. Have you ever noticed how a single person can fracture your sense of peace? But here's what time has taught me. Attachment isn't love, it's dependency. It weakens your resilience and turns you brittle in the very moments when strength is most needed. The Stoics warned us of this long ago. When you bind your worth to forces beyond your command, suffering is sure to follow. Detachment isn't about growing cold or unfeeling. It's about reclaiming your balance. It's the silent discipline of breaking invisible chains you didn't even know you were wearing. So, here's the real question. What happens when you finally stop clinging? What happens when you choose truth over illusion, liberation over fear? Stay with me. Let's walk that road together. As we open the first chapter, picture the stillness that settles after a heartbreak. A silence so thick it weighs more than words ever could. Most label it a tragedy. I call it tuition. Pain is life's price tag for growth. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for convenient timing. It cracks you open so you can finally witness the fractures that were always present. Not every person enters your life to stay. Some come to dissolve fantasies. Some arrive to make you confront your own reflection. Some show up as accidental mentors. Think back to the last time you held on to someone who didn't hold you back. Initially, it felt like you lost something sacred. But in truth, once the haze cleared, what slipped away was just a mirage. The story you crafted around them, the belief they matched your devotion, the illusion that love could override neglect. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it." The same applies to love. If it isn't honest, don't keep holding on. In hindsight, I see now, I didn't lose anything real. What I gained was insight, a lens sharp enough to slice through my self-deception. I saw where I broke my own boundaries. I saw where I painted red flags in softer shades. I saw how easily I sacrificed dignity in pursuit of affection. That realization hurt, but it brought clarity. Now picture asking a different question in the middle of that pain, not "Why did this happen to me?" but "What did this show me?" That shift changes chaos into understanding. The Stoics believed life will repeat its teachings until you finally learn. If you ignore the message, you'll keep facing the same dramas, the same characters in different clothes, over and over. That's why people spiral, confusing patterns for destiny. But the moment you extract the lesson, the loop breaks. You don't need them to explain. You don't need their apology. You don't need a redo. Clarity is your closure, and clarity outshines every answer you thought you needed. Here's where it cuts deeper. The message isn't always about them. Sometimes it's about you, the one who left without a word. Did they not expose your hunger for approval? The one who belittled you, did they not uncover the shaky foundation you stood on? Epictetus once said, "We are disturbed not by things, but by the view we take of them." Pain reveals your view, and in that truth lies your opportunity to rebuild. I remember my own crossroads. I wrapped my self-worth around someone's indifference, believing love alone would awaken them. I ignored what was real because the dream felt sweeter. I convinced myself that devotion would bridge the distance. But reality doesn't cater to illusions. The truth was simple. When someone values you, you never have to wonder. And if you're constantly unsure, you're nowhere at all. That truth stung, but it set me free. Here's what few will say. The worst people you meet may teach the best lessons. The one who lied shows you the gravity of honesty. The one who vanished teaches the value of presence. The one who diminished you forces you to grow beyond their shadow. Seneca wrote, "Fire tests gold." Adversity tests the brave flame's scar, but they also shape. Pain wounds, but it also sharpens. Would you have grown if they stayed? Would you have raised your standards if they treated you well? Would you have stopped chasing illusions if they hadn't walked away? Probably not. Pain transforms you in ways comfort never will. This is why, even through the ache, there's room for strange gratitude. Not because they deserved to hurt you, but because their actions forced you to face a truth you kept avoiding. Without them, you'd still be holding on to myths, still mistaking loud love for true love. But truth is quieter, calmer, harder to deny. So let's walk deeper into the insight. You didn't lose a person, you lost the illusion around them. And when illusions fade, clarity takes their place. Clarity about your cycles, your resilience, your life beyond the ruins of what you thought you needed. Pain isn't your enemy. It's the exam waiting in silence while you answer. Pass it and you walk forward. Ignore it and you're stuck retaking the same test again and again. This is the first gate of detachment, turning loss into a lesson. It's not about deleting memories or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about seeing the wound for what it is. A teacher that etched wisdom into your skin. You stop wasting your suffering. You stop orbiting the same pain. You collect the lesson and carry it forward. And when you begin to see people as teachers, not tragedies, everything changes. Letting go becomes less of a fight and more of a release. You stop asking why they hurt you and start asking how it reshaped you. You stop chasing apologies and start living with understanding. That's how you break the loop. That's how you step into power. That's how you begin to win. From here, we move forward to the second chapter, the one that teaches you the most difficult discipline of all, how to create distance so healing can begin. Imagine trying to heal a wound while picking at it every night. That's exactly what happens when we say we want closure, yet keep the memory alive. You revisit their pictures. You replay conversations in your head. You try to interpret silence as if it's hiding answers. You say you've moved on, but your habits prove otherwise. What you're really doing isn't healing. It's emotional self-harm. And I know this because I've done it too. I convinced myself I was over someone, but there I was, scrolling through messages like sacred relics, justifying quick visits to their profile like it wouldn't matter. But each scroll was a cut. Every update, a wound reopened. It was like trying to quit smoking while hiding a pack in your drawer. It wasn't healing. It was disguised addiction. The Stoics warned us. Epictetus said, "You become what you dwell on. Feed your thoughts old echoes, and you'll stay shackled to memories you claim to hate." Healing doesn't happen if the wound is torn open every day. Here's the truth. It's harsh, but it's freeing. If they truly valued you, you wouldn't be here forcing detachment. Let that sink in. People who genuinely care never make you beg for time. They don't leave you starving for scraps. So here's where discipline becomes necessary. If you want your peace back, be relentless. Block them if you must. Mute their presence. Delete the texts. Stop polishing memories that only highlight the highlights. Stop cropping out the parts that hurt. Nostalgia is a liar. It edits the pain and leaves a highlight reel. Don't let yourself be fooled. Every time you let them occupy your mind again, you give them rent-free real estate in your soul. And your mind, that's your kingdom. Why place someone else on the throne? I still remember the day I drew my line. No grand speech, no final message, just a decision that echoed softly. This chapter is over. The first days felt brutal, like cutting off something you once relied on to breathe. But soon, silence began to feel like salve. With every moment I chose not to look, with every day I didn't check in, the grip loosened. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not external events." Understand this, and you'll uncover strength. Distance isn't cruelty, it's recovery. Of course, it's not instant. Some days you'll feel strong, others you'll feel the ache. That's part of it. But each moment of resistance adds a stone to the foundation of your strength. Each time you say no to the past, you say yes to your dignity. And soon that burden you carried starts to lift. Because closure, it's not a gift from them. It's a decision made by you, not from their regret, not from a final message, but from your refusal to look back. That's the soul of emotional distance, not revenge, not spite, but protection. It's refusing to let your mind become a shrine to the past. It's choosing to close the book instead of rereading the same sentence, hoping the ending will somehow change. Emotional detachment is a battle of the mind, and the only victory comes when you stop following their script. So reclaim your thoughts, defend them as fiercely as your body, because once you stop giving them space inside your mind, you begin to win, not against them, but for yourself. And in that victory, you rediscover something rare, the quiet power of being whole. And from here, the road grows even steeper. The next step is not about them anymore. It's about learning to sit with yourself without fear, to find strength not in the presence of another, but in the calm of solitude. That is where we go next. Picture a room where the silence feels so dense it rattles you. The air holds no voices. The phone stays quiet, no messages, no meetings, no distractions. For many, that stillness feels like punishment, as though life has exiled them. But what if solitude isn't banishment? What if it's boot camp? I used to run from quiet. I drowned it in scrolling, filled it with chatter, buried it under busyness. Anything to avoid being alone with myself. Each distraction was armor shielding me from my own reflection. But the more I avoided solitude, the more fragile I became. I gave others the authority to validate me, to make me feel seen, to remind me I mattered. Until one day, I stopped running. I sat still and let the silence fall like dust around me. Marcus Aurelius once said, "There is no retreat more peaceful than that which is found within." The Stoics didn't see solitude as loss. They saw it as a return. When you sit alone without noise or masks, you meet the rawest version of yourself. And in that meeting, something powerful is born. The fear of being alone is really the fear of facing yourself. But once you do, once you stare into your own mind without flinching, that fear fades. Think of solitude like a personal gym. Each moment alone, without distraction, strengthens your core. I remember evenings where I resisted the urge to call someone just to escape the quiet. It was uncomfortable at first. My skin felt like it wanted to crawl away. But slowly, discomfort turned into calm. I opened unread books, wrote words I'd never said aloud, faced truths I had buried for years. And in that stillness, I discovered I wasn't broken or incomplete. I was enough. I had always been. The silence wasn't my enemy anymore. It became my sanctuary. Here's the truth. When you enjoy your own company, no one can control you by threatening to leave. You stop fearing departure because you've learned you never leave yourself. That's the quiet power of someone who's embraced solitude. They are immune to emotional ransom. Their peace is self-sustained. Their worth isn't borrowed, it's built in. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be improved, be willing to look foolish." Solitude trains you for that. You stop performing. You stop needing applause. You start living for your own standard, not the crowd's reaction. And that's where things begin to transform. Because without solitude, you cling. You tolerate relationships that drain you, not because you love them, but because they fill the silence. You mistake chaos for connection. You endure disrespect just to avoid being alone with your own thoughts. But when solitude becomes your strength, you cut those ties with ease. You choose peace over poison. You raise your standards, not to stay alone forever, but because you finally understand you're not scared of being alone anymore. Start simple. One evening without your phone, a walk without headphones, a coffee without conversation. At first, the silence may feel heavy. You'll crave a fix, a ping, a scroll, a voice. But sit through that. Because each time you resist distraction, the silence begins to speak. It becomes your teacher. It shows you your values, your needs, your identity beneath the noise. Seneca wrote, "We don't have too little time, we waste much of it. Noise is the greatest thief of all. Solitude is the opposite. It's a wise investment. Its interest compounds in clarity, in strength, in peace. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you realize you don't need others to feel whole. You're not valuable because someone chooses you. You're valuable because you exist, fully and unapologetically. And when you learn that, something changes. You stop accepting people who drain you. You stop chasing those who disappear. You stop thirsting for approval like it's oxygen. You start choosing who gets your time. You stop settling for being an option. You demand to be treated as a priority. And if they can't offer that, you walk away without drama, because solitude has already shown you you are never really walking alone. Some of the world's greatest minds knew this. They carved out time to be alone, not because they were unloved, but because they knew solitude shaped their greatness. That truth hasn't changed. Solitude isn't a lack of something. It's the presence of everything that matters. The fullness of peace, the fullness of clarity, the fullness of self. So sit with the silence. Let it settle. Stay in it long enough for discomfort to become serenity. Because in that serenity, you'll find exactly what you've been searching for. Not in others, but within yourself. And when you rise from that stillness, when you return from solitude, you'll carry something rare, unshakable peace. And the next step, choosing who gets to walk beside you in that peace and who doesn't. Which brings us into the fourth chapter. Now imagine a room full of voices, but none lift you higher. The words circle endlessly around regrets, past wounds, old pain. Hands reach for you, not to raise you, but to pull you back into memories you're trying to outgrow, and you think you're healing. But the company you keep is quietly pulling you back into the mud. The truth is plain. You reflect the people closest to you. I once had a friend who did this. Every talk circled back to my flaws, my mistakes, my heartbreaks. Every conversation became a mirror of pain. And no matter how hard I tried to move on, their words shackled me to the version of myself I was trying to leave behind. The day I stepped back from that friendship, the air cleared. Not because everything around me changed, but because my environment did. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius said, "What you think about shapes your soul. But what you think about is shaped by those you're near. Sit beside bitterness, and it will seep into you. Stand among strength, and it will start to rise through you." So, emotional detachment isn't just about releasing one person. It's about redesigning the mental climate in which you exist. That's where clarity enters. Detachment is not isolation. It's curation. It's not hiding away. It's choosing wisely who has access to your inner space. If your circle is filled with people who refuse to evolve, who sit in self-pity, who glorify the pain, you will stay trapped in that same pattern. But if your circle is filled with builders, with survivors who rise from ruin, with people who've known heartbreak and still choose growth, then slowly you rise too. Because strength is contagious. So is mediocrity. Choose wisely. Think of those you admire, the people who've endured storms and kept moving. They don't obsess over betrayal. They don't dissect heartbreak endlessly. They build, they rise, they evolve, and their presence changes yours. Their calm steadies you. Their focus becomes yours. Their forward motion drags you from the quicksand. You don't even notice at first, but slowly you stop obsessing over what was lost. You start anchoring into what you're building. Seneca said it clearly. Spend time with those who improve you. It's not a suggestion, it's a survival skill. Because if you linger in the company of those allergic to growth, you'll avoid growth too. If you sit among the bitter, you'll sip their poison without even realizing it. But if you align with those who face reality, who take responsibility, who replace excuses with action, you will begin to change too. It's not easy. Walking away rarely is, especially when it's someone who's been close, even when they've become an anchor, not a sail. But ask yourself, what's heavier? Letting go of someone who stalls your progress, or dragging their weight through every future you're trying to build? One costs you pain today, the other costs your potential forever. Detachment is bravery, but it gives you freedom in return, because when you clean your circle, your space begins to reflect your destination, not your history. You're no longer tangled in conversations that trigger wounds. You're surrounded by voices that nourish your strength. And slowly, without force, your identity evolves. You stop reacting to what you've lost. You begin creating who you're becoming. That is where true detachment grows roots. Not in loneliness, but in alignment. You no longer just remove, you select. You choose who is allowed near your energy, like a gatekeeper at a fortress. You let in those who make you better, those who won't let you spiral, those who reflect back your best self, even when it's hard to see. That's who deserves your time, your effort, your presence. So now take a close look at your circle. Ask the questions you've been avoiding. Do they push you forward or pull you back? Do they echo your strength or amplify your insecurity? Because more than your intentions, your environment shapes your outcome. And that choice, that power, it's always been yours. And once you claim that power, once you shape your circle with clarity, a new challenge arrives. Learning to stand solid on your own, not as a burden, but as a foundation of power, which leads us to the next step. Now picture fleeing one burning house, only to run into another already in flames. That's what happens when you rush into something new without healing what hurt you. It feels like escape, like breath after suffocation, like hope. But beneath the surface, the old fire is still smoldering, and when it flares back up, it burns even hotter. I've seen it, I've lived it. We confuse loneliness for readiness. We believe a new person can cover the wounds the last one left, but it doesn't work that way. It only hides the damage temporarily, like fresh paint over cracked walls. But the cracks always return. You drag your hurt into this new space, You compare, you project, you expect healing from someone who never broke you. And so the pattern spins again. Pain stacked on pain. Disappointment on top of disappointment. The Stoics would have warned us. Seneca once wrote, "He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it's required." That's what a rebound is. Pain postponed, not prevented. Healing isn't about replacing people. It's about rebuilding yourself. It's sitting still long enough to ask, what went wrong? What did I allow? What must I learn? If you skip that step, you carry the past into the present and call it something new. But it's not new. It's recycled. You cannot truly offer yourself to someone else if a part of you is still anchored to someone gone. And here's the part no one tells you. A rebound can leave you lonelier than being alone ever could. Because deep down, you know it's a distraction. You know you're filling a void, not forming a bond. You know it's not real connection. It's medication. And when that illusion crumbles, the emptiness feels doubled. 2 heartbreaks instead of 1. That's why the Stoic route is harder, but sturdier. True healing is stillness, not motion. It's discipline, not desperation. I had a friend like this. Every breakup led straight into another relationship. Everyone ended the same. Frustration, regret, exhaustion. It wasn't until they paused, took a trip alone, revisited the passions they abandoned, focused on becoming whole, that the cycle stopped. And when they did meet someone new, they chose from fullness, not lack. You could see the shift in their presence. They didn't cling, they didn't chase, they stood. So here's where you must shift your focus. Don't chase another person. Chase growth, travel solo. Pick up the pen again. Train your body, strengthen your mind, feed your soul. Build friendships that aren't driven by flattery, but by shared vision and mutual respect. The more time you invest in yourself, the stronger you'll become. And when love returns, you'll receive it with open hands, not desperate ones. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Look within." The fountain of strength flows from your own soul. You don't need someone else to light your way. That strength you've been searching for, it's already inside you. You just have to stop outsourcing your wholeness. Once you face yourself, solitude becomes a guide, not a punishment. You realize you were never incomplete. And from that clarity, you'll love differently, choose differently, stand differently. So take a breath. Don't rush to prove you've moved on. Don't leap into another fire just to feel warm. You don't need escape, you need transformation, because the healthiest relationships don't grow from fear of being alone. They grow when 2 whole people freely choose each other. And now the road widens again. Healing isn't just solitude, it's also shaped by who you invite to walk beside you. Which brings us into the next truth we must face. Now picture yourself in a room overflowing with voices, each one pulling at you. They shout opinions about your worth, whisper suggestions about your path, and drown you in their expectations. The noise doesn't just fill the space, it starts to fill you. If you're not careful, you begin to live as their reflection, not as yourself. This is one of the most silent chains that people never break. And yet, the Stoics were clear. The weight of someone else's opinion only matters if you let it rest on your shoulders. I remember when I was younger, how desperately I sought validation. A compliment could lift me for days. A single criticism could ruin my week. I didn't own my peace. I leased it out to anyone who had an opinion. Marcus Aurelius once said, "It amazes me that we love ourselves more than others, yet we value their opinions more than our own." He was right. Until I learned how to practice indifference, I was never truly free. Because when your sense of value is tied to public approval, you are chained, not by force, but by your own need to be seen a certain way. Imagine a soldier entering battle, flinching at every insult thrown from the sidelines. He loses, not from a blade, but from distraction. The real threat isn't their judgment, it's your dependence on it. Seneca once asked, "What progress have I made?" I've begun to be a friend to myself. That's the shift. That's the transformation. When you anchor yourself in your own standards, praise doesn't inflate you, and criticism doesn't unravel you. You begin to move in a silence that unsettles people who need you to react. Your peace becomes untouchable because it no longer relies on their applause. I remember returning to a space where people knew an old version of me. They spoke with assumptions, whispered behind my back, wondered what happened. In the past, I would have tried to explain myself, to defend, to justify, to prove. But this time, I said nothing. I kept building, I kept living, and soon their voices faded. Not because I silenced them, but because I stopped feeding them. That's the strength of indifference. It isn't arrogance, it's clarity. It's knowing that standing still while others swirl around you is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do. To be unmoved doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop allowing shifting opinions to dictate your direction. Today they cheer, tomorrow they criticize. If you live by the crowd, you'll die by their inconsistency. But when you follow your own compass, you walk straight, even through the storm. Think back. How many of your choices weren't really yours? How many paths did you avoid because you feared being misunderstood? How many dreams were buried because someone might laugh? Each of those moments is proof. Freedom isn't found without detaching from opinion. Epictetus said, "If you want to grow, be willing to look like a fool." To the crowd, indifference looks like pride, but to the free soul, it feels like peace. When you reach this space, you no longer rush to fix their perceptions. You don't beg to be seen in a better light. You just live, you just move, and your actions speak for themselves. And here's the irony. When you stop trying to win approval, genuine respect starts to follow. They may not always agree with you, but they can't ignore you. Because there's something magnetic about a person who moves without permission. So let the voices rise and fall. Let the judgments swirl like wind. You stay grounded. You stay whole. Because once you realize opinions are just noise, you unlock a freedom most people never taste. And once you stop wasting your energy explaining yourself, you can redirect that energy into building something lasting. Which leads us to the next step, where pain is no longer seen as punishment, but as a tool. Where suffering stops breaking you and starts shaping you. Now imagine holding a jagged piece of broken glass. At first, it just cuts, but in the right hands, it can be sharpened into something new. A blade not for harm, but for shaping, for carving a new direction forward. That's pain. Unattended, it bleeds. Untransformed, it poisons. But when focused, it becomes fuel. I once knew someone who lost everything he thought made him who he was. His relationship, his identity, his sense of place in the world. For a long time, he drowned. He saw pain as proof that life was against him. But something shifted. He began waking up before sunrise, running in the cold, his heartbreak pounding through each step. He took jobs he once turned down and built discipline inside the routine. Day by day, his pain stopped dragging him down and started pulling him forward. That same loss, didn't destroy him. It remade him. Seneca once said, "Hardship strengthens the mind, just as labor does the body." The pain that burns you today might be the fire that tempers you tomorrow. The betrayal that shattered your trust might sharpen your ability to see clearly. The silence that left you lonely might be the moment you meet your strength. None of it is wasted if you're willing to use it. Take a look at your own scars. How many of them taught you more than comfort ever could? How many boundaries were born from the moments you swore, "I'll never go through this again"? The truth is, comfort never demands transformation. Only pain does. And once you see pain as material, not punishment, you begin to touch a power few ever reach. But that takes choice. Most people don't transform pain. They preserve it. They replay it. They worship it. They carry it like a story they refuse to stop telling. That's not resilience. That's surrender. The wiser path is to ask, how can I shape this? What can I build from this? A broken heart might become a message that heals someone else. A betrayal might push you to build a foundation no absence can shake. A failure might awaken the drive that had been sleeping in you for years. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The obstacle is not in the way. The obstacle is the way." Read that again. The thing blocking you is the path forward. And when you accept that, pain stops being something to avoid. It becomes something to harness. I remember a time when I thought everything had collapsed. I blamed the world. I blamed timing. I blamed others. But eventually, I saw what was really gone. Not security, not love, but illusions. Illusions of permanence, illusions of guarantees, illusions that life owed me comfort. And what I had left was truth, unfiltered, raw, unforgiving, but real. And in that rawness, I built something truer than what came before. That suffering I hated was the exact thing that shaped my stability. So now, you have a choice. Will you use this pain to build bitterness, or will you let it refine you? Will you replay the same story, or write a new one? Because the moment you turn suffering into purpose, you stop asking, "Why did this happen?" and start asking, "What will I create from this?" That's when you stop being the one who was hurt and become the one who grew from it. That's what emotional detachment really means. Not numbness, not escape, but transformation. And when you've walked through that fire, when you emerge with strength that wasn't there before, another truth meets you. That strength was never given to you by someone else. It was there all along. You just hadn't met it yet. That's the freedom waiting in the next step. Now picture a room with no sound, no demands, no one else to impress. Just breath, just presence, just you. Most people avoid this moment, but those who've walked through emotional detachment discover something different. This silence, it's not absence, it's liberation. The end of detachment isn't emptiness, it's realization that nothing was ever missing. I remember mornings when solitude felt like punishment, when the stillness pressed down like a weight. I believed strength meant moving on quickly, finding someone new to occupy the space, filling the void with noise. But over time I learned that true strength doesn't come from replacement. It comes from recognition. That nothing was broken, nothing was lacking. The peace I was chasing outside had been waiting inside me all along. Marcus Aurelius said, "A happy life requires very little. It's all within yourself." We spend years searching outward. Approval, attention, connection. But what we really seek is permission to accept ourselves. We cling to relationships not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being forgotten, fear that without someone we are less. But Epictetus warned, if you wish to be unbreakable, don't compete in arenas you don't control. Depending on others for your peace is a contest you will always lose. I once knew a woman who endured betrayal after betrayal. Every time she rushed into someone new, hoping to erase the pain. But healing never came. It was only when she paused, traveled by herself, and poured into her own growth that the emptiness disappeared. Not because someone arrived, but because she arrived. She stopped seeking another person and found herself. And when love returned, it wasn't a rescue. It was a choice. This is the essence of self-sufficiency, not pride, not distance, but quiet abundance. Seneca said, "He who needs the least is richest of all." Because when you no longer fear being without someone, every bond you form becomes cleaner. You're not holding on from need, you're choosing from freedom. The destination of detachment is not isolation. It is wholeness. It is clarity. It is strength born from stillness. And once you operate from that state, every step forward becomes intentional. You no longer react out of fear. You move from alignment. Detachment doesn't mean shutting down. It means protecting your peace like it matters, because it does. Emotional detachment is not heartlessness. It's remembering that your energy is sacred. Your worth doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from being true to yourself. There will still be moments of nostalgia. Old memories may whisper. The mind might wander. But every time you resist reaching backward, you strengthen your present. You reclaim more of who you are. The Stoics taught us, what is meant for you will remain. What leaves was never yours to cling to. People enter your life as blessings or as teachers. Both have purpose. The ones who stayed remind you of joy. The ones who left gave you clarity. So when you let someone go with grace, you don't lose, you rise. And don't forget, the only person who stays with you from beginning to end is you. So invest in that relationship more than any other. Make it your foundation. Make it unshakable. Know this truth deeply. You are already complete. You don't need to be finished by anyone else. And when you truly believe that, your power begins to multiply. You stop chasing respect. You embody it. You stop begging for peace. You live it. So release the weight that was never love, just attachment, dressed like it. Breathe deeper, stand taller, and keep moving toward the life that mirrors your growth. Every decision you make to honor yourself is a step closer to freedom. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe and share your reflection in the comments with just 2 words. Choose peace. Let that be your anchor, your reminder, your invitation to others walking the same path. You are stronger than what hurt you, stronger than what you lost, stronger than the doubt that occasionally visits your mind. Move forward with that truth and prepare for the next chapter, because your story is still unfolding.